Welcome back to Zalt of the Earth. Today we have with us our lumberjack politician Levi Prime, before you painter, our everything pop culture and lore master Zach, all bets are off Gamble.
That's me.
Our resident social media and photography god, Andrew, not the impeached President Johnson.
Hello.
And I'm just here for the memes. Tegan, no, I didn't play baseball pitcher. And today, Zach recently went on a trip to Disneyland, so we're going to be going over that a little bit. Other than that, the Mandolorian also recently ended.
Rise of Skywalker came out 2 weeks ago-ish.
Yeah, if you live under a rock, you might not know that.
Yeah, so there were a lot of pop culture things happening for us in the last few weeks. So we'll kind of go over what we were doing over break. And yeah, Zach, you want to start us off with a little bit about your trip?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go to Disneyland last week. I was there. My first day in Disney was actually New Year's Day, and I haven't been to Disneyland in 6 years. I think it was a senior class trip that we were all a part of.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that was my last time there, and going back was just amazing. I mean, you don't realize how much you love and miss Disneyland when you've had it out of your life for so long. I didn't have one bad time while I was there, and it was really cool to see. It was still dressed up for the holidays and whatnot, so the castle had these really cool, it was blue lights, and it had icicles and Christmas lights hanging off of it, and it was beautiful. And there's just garland and lights, and there's a massive tree in both the town square for Disneyland, as well as one in the little circle square area in California Adventure as well. So that was really fun. I would say the highlight of my time there was definitely Galaxy's Edge for Star Wars. I had the opportunity to make a lightsaber, my own lightsaber, in Savi's workshop there. That was a very spiritual experience for me.
I actually, so with you going there, Haley and I have been looking at making a trip to Disneyland. We were originally planning on going this October. We wanted to go for Halloween, around Halloween time, but we're thinking probably of pushing it back to this summer. But in preparing for that and knowing that you were going to be going there soon, I looked up some of the stuff that they had talked about, and one of the people in one of the articles mentioned it combines a religious with pop culture experience.
It really is. And I love Star Wars so much, and so just being able to be in the workshop, or even just in Galaxy's Edge, was just awesome. Everyone there is basically, it's just one big role play fest. Everyone is their own character in the Star Wars lore. Disney encourages all the cast members there to create their own backstory as if they were
that's cool.
A real character in Star Wars. And so you have everyone playing along. You have stormtroopers and First Order officers and Kylo Ren walking around, and that was way fun. I was standing outside Savi's workshop, and there was some First Order stormtroopers up on a scaffolding balcony type thing, and I yelled to one. I was like, "You First Order scum!" And he was like, "Move along! Don't make me ask for your identification." I was like, "Ah!"
That's cool.
But it was such a great opportunity to go there, and I was just geeking out and just seeing the sights and sounds. They're every I would say 20-30 minutes you hear starfighters flying over the area, and it's almost as if you almost think that something is flying over your head and shooting at each other. It's wild. And I would say that the one ride they have open right now is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, and that was awesome. I mean, being able to, granted, I waited in line over an hour to get on this beast, but it was so worth it. The setup is you have 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and 2 engineers, and you're trying to hijack First Order cargo to smuggle and whatnot. And I was So the pilots, one pilot does side to side, and you're like controlling the Millennium Falcon, and you're like in the cockpit, and you have like all the dials and like the levers and like everything. It is so awesome. And like I was the right pilot, and right pilot goes up and down. But what I didn't know is like halfway through the thing, it's like, pilot, hit the hyperdrive, and I was like, what? And just like the hyperdrive lever is like flashing, and I'm just, oh no way. And I like pull that sucker, and like you go into like light speed, and I'm just losing my mind, and just like every dream I ever had as a kid is just coming true, and I lost it.
I think it's really cool. I remember you saying this, and then we talking with another friend who had been to Disney, made a Disney trip recently as well. They were there with like a 3-year-old, or not 3-year-old, probably like 5 or 6-year-old. Mm-hmm. And he was able to like interact as a pilot as well. And like even when he was crashing and stuff, they made that like a part of the ride. So it's like
very immersive. Like what you do definitely affects like everybody else's experience. So like if you crash into something, the room will just like shake and just like it was great. It was so much fun.
I think as they continue to make more and more rides like that, the more interactive you can be, the more immersive it is.
I agree.
I think the more fun that people are going to have with it. I mean, Disney already can throw however much money they want at anything, but I think that's really cool that they've started implementing more and more.
The Disney magic is real. Like it feels like you're piloting a spaceship, and that's awesome. And I had such a good time.
I know they had added some extra stuff as well from like the last time we were all there in high school. I know like Pixar Pier has changed.
Yeah, so the whole pier area around California Adventure now is Pixar Pier, and so you have like you have some carnival games. You have like Toy Story Mania, which is like it's like a little shooter game. You put on 3D glasses and you get in this like little spinning car, and you go screen to screen, and you compete with the person next to you. And so that was really fun. California Screamin' has been rebranded as the Incredicoaster for the Incredibles 2 that came out a couple years ago. Cool. And that was really fun. That roller coaster is a favorite of mine, and having it all Incredibles themed was really fun too. There's a portion on the ride where like the gimmick is that you're chasing after Jack. Like Jack gets out, and you're like chasing after him on the coaster. And there's a section of the ride where like you're going through like a tunnel, and like Mr. Incredible is like sticking out of like a wall, and he's like num num cookies, and it smells like freaking baked goods. Like
they would do that.
It was so fun. It adds to the immersion and the fun of everything. And I really enjoyed it.
I think it would be so cool to be an Imagineer for Disney, like in any aspect of, because it really is like all 5 senses that they're getting into now. Honestly. It's completely immersive, everything that they're doing. So that's way cool. So I was going to talk a little bit about, while we're on the topic of Disney, the end of Mandolorian. Zach can probably help me out with this one, but there's some like deep lore that.
Here, wait. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the rides at Disney, though.
Okay.
Just because, like, I find it really interesting because Disney makes so much money each year, but like the only ride that's like a wild roller coaster ride is the Incredicoaster. Mm-hmm. Other than that, they're all kind of like, it's more about the experience rather than like flying through the air kind of thing and like flipping upside down and that kind of stuff.
More amusement rather than thrill.
Yeah. Which I think it's really interesting because I was talking to somebody, I think it was one of my coworkers the other day, but they were saying that the older you get, the less able you are to cope with being like flipped around and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I didn't know that. I thought it was just like, I don't know, maybe it's just like you haven't done it in a long time, and so you're just not used to it anymore, so you feel like throwing up when you go on coasters, but it just, like, a big part of it has to do with your age, and somehow your development makes it so you get sick easier than you used to when you're little. Because I used to not get sick at all, and then I went to Lagoon, and for those of you that don't know, Lagoon is a pretty okay theme park that we have in Utah. It doesn't match up to anything, but it's got a log flume, so that's cool.
Got one of those shooty uppy rides.
Yeah. They recently got a couple good coasters, but they still don't match up to anything at like Six Flags. But like just going on one of those made me sick. Like after a couple times, I was like, oof. Man, what's happening to me? Like I didn't understand it.
No, I can attest to that. Before going on the Incredicoaster, my brother had like come up, like me and my mom were standing in line, and he's like, "Hey, we bought cookies. You want one?" I was like, "Sure, yeah, I'll have a cookie." And so I eat the cookie, and then I get off the Incredicoaster. I was like, "Man, that cookie did not sit well in there."
See,
that just got one loop.
Yeah, just one loop.
See, from my perspective, like I didn't like I didn't actually go on any roller coasters or like roller coasters pretty much until I got into high school. And so like I had a very short time span there where I didn't get sick, you know, and now I've already like pretty much after 4 rides I'm done for the day. So I think Disney, like part of the reason why it's so successful is like you were saying, it's not only targeted to like an age group of kids where every ride is pretty much a kid-friendly ride, but it's also targeted to the adults for like the nostalgia factor of going back, and you can still interact with the ride without feeling gross after getting off of it. So,
and one of the things that Disney does really well, and my boss talks about this all the time, and I work at a jewelry shop, but he loves Disney, and I swear I think they go like every year. But one of the things they do is they don't say no, and they're all about the experience, and all their workers are about the experience and everything too. I mean, obviously, if you've been there, you see see them. If you get divorced that day, you can't have a bad day. You still have to go out there and smile and hug every freaking kid out there. But like they don't say no to anything. So if there's like a kid stomping on flowers, they'll just go up to that kid and be like, "Hey, you want to come over here?" Like they won't say, "Hey, no stomping on the flowers," you know. They're like, "Come here, kid. Like, come hang out with me, the princess, or something." You know. Kylo Ren comes and grabs the kid.
That's so funny.
But yeah, it's just Disney just goes above and beyond, and it's I don't know. You'd think you'd see that more with other parks and stuff, and like other companies, but you just don't see it as much. You know, maybe with Universal Studios. I haven't been there. I haven't been to Harry Potter World or anything. But
it's not as good.
No,
it's not. It's good, but it's not as good.
Okay.
Because it's only like certain sections of the park. It's not like the whole thing. Because like Disneyland is like anywhere you look, anywhere you go, it's a part of it. Like even the lines. Like I think that's the perfect example. Like any of the lines for the rides are just as much a part of the ride as the ride.
That's true.
It's like a privilege to wait and stand and like, you know what I mean?
That's kind of
I've been here for 4 hours and I love it.
I remember when we went in high school, we sat in line for forever at the Haunted Mansion. I didn't even end up going on the ride because I was so bored to tears. But I know they changed it to the Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's Tower of Terror.
Tower of Terror. What did I say before?
Haunted
Mansion, not Haunted Mansion. Yeah, no, Tower of Terror. And they switched it recently to Guardians of the Galaxy. And I remember you saying that was like one of your favorite rides.
Yeah, that is. I would say like outside of like anything in Galaxy's Edge, I'm gonna say like the Guardians of the Galaxy ride is probably my favorite ride at Disneyland. I mean, just like I was telling Tegan earlier that I was literally screaming as the ride was going up and down, and it was like in it. It's to the sound of "I Want You Back" by the Jackson 5.
Yeah, that's great.
And it was so much fun, and just that ride, it drops you if you haven't been on it. It shoots you up, it drops you, it does all that jazz, and just having your like feeling your butt leave the seat and then just fall back down like so suddenly. It was a hoot, and just having it all Guardians of the Galaxy themed was really cool. There's a lot of hidden Marvel Easter eggs in there because it's like the collector's menagerie from
cool.
the movie.
Okay.
That's way cool.
Even the loading room before you like get onto the ride, like Rocket is like kind of
you have
around
a little Rocket animatronic like bust out of like a vent in the ceiling and stands up and is walking along a bookshelf of sort. And
that's cool.
giving you the lowdown of what's about to happen.
That's awesome.
I'm so glad they changed it because like the Tower of Terror before, like it was fun, but you liked it because of the ride, not because of the experience.
Yeah.
But changing all those elements like just made it way more applicable instead of just like having like random organs everywhere. You know what I mean? Like
Especially
it's just like gross and unnecessary. So like
There was so when the line is getting closer to like the actual elevator part itself, there's a little cage area, and the Yeti from the Matterhorn is just sitting in there, and I was like, this is all part of the Disney universe. It's canon. Matterhorn Yeti is in the MCU.
You're gonna write a comic book about him now.
It's canon. Can't go back now.
Oh, that's way funny. Yeah, but I can attest to hating sitting in that line. So that's perfect that they've changed it up. So that's cool. Unless someone has anything else to add.
Oh, let's talk Mandalorian.
Okay, cool. So
this is the way.
This is the way.
There are going to be spoilers in this, mostly for the very end, because there's a really cool segment that ties into Star Wars Rebels cartoon series. And Zach can kind of fill us in more on that because he's more the lore master here. But basically, if you haven't seen it, or and you don't plan on seeing it, or if you have seen it and you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, get off your butt and go mooch off of somebody and get Disney Plus right now. You monster.
there's your incentive to go see The Mandalorian now.
This is an ad.
We
Levi's
may seem a little biased towards Disney, but I promise you, only Zach is.
Can confirm.
So anyway, at the end of the series, there's an Imperial officer who, after crashing his TIE fighter, cuts a hole through the top of the TIE fighter with a black lightsaber. Now, if you don't know what this means, the lore kind of behind it, if you go back in Star Wars Rebels, there is mention of a black lightsaber. It actually shows a black lightsaber as well, but it's actually a Mandalorian weapon originally. So the first Mandalorian to ever become a Jedi created this weapon. So it has some awesome significance when you consider it from that perspective.
Yeah, it's a huge symbol in Mandalorian culture. Like Tegan said, it's like this black bladed lightsaber, and it's not shaped like normal lightsabers that you see in Star Wars media. It's not just like a straight blade. It's actually curved. It looks more like a typical sword. And it was made by the first Mandalorian to ever be inducted into the Jedi Order. You see it for the first time in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and to see it go through, you kind of see its entire lifespan in a way. It's a very significant symbol in Mandalorian culture. Like, he or she that wields the saber is dubbed holds the mantle of Mandalore, and is kind of the uniter and of the Mandalorian clans. And the last time we see it is in Star Wars Rebels. We find out that Darth Maul had held on to it for a significant amount of time and kept it in his lair on his home planet of Dathomir, and it was picked up by a young Mandalorian named Sabine, and she kind of takes up this mantle of Mandalore for a time being, because she's the one who found the saber. She goes and tries to rally her family and her clans and her house to rise up against the Empire. And Star Wars Rebels takes place like a couple years before the events of Episode 4. And so the last time we see the Darksaber, she's giving it to I forget the character's name, unfortunately, but she is this Mandalorian warrior. She played a significant role in the Clone Wars. She was the sister of the political leader of Mandalore at the time. Her name was Duchess Satine. and that's the last time we see it. This Sabine gives, I think her name is Bo-Katan. Now that I think about it, yeah, she gives the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, and she's kind of takes up the mantle of Mandalore herself. And we don't see the aftermath of what happens after she's given the Darksaber. So to see an Imperial officer such as Moff Gideon at the end of the Mandalorian cut his way out of a TIE fighter with this weapon is kind of mind-boggling, because it's you just think, like, what happened? Like, how did he get it? How did he get this? It kind of teases in that episode that he was stationed on Mandalore, and they mention the Great Purge during this show too, which is kind of when the Mandalorians start rising up against the Empire, and the Empire essentially wipes out almost all of the Mandalorians, and it's something we don't know a lot about. We don't see it in any other Star Wars medium, but I think season 2 is gonna go into that a lot, and I think it's gonna be really cool.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for what that show has for its second season.
So basically, this lightsaber's been like all over, huge symbol for the Mandalorians, and I think it's gonna dive into some pretty cool lore for this next season coming up. But one thing that I thought was kind of interesting, in like something I've been looking into a lot recently, is like significance of lightsaber colors and things like that. You know, like the blue is more like the Jedi Guardians, or they're the more like combat focused Jedi Knights, and then you have like the green, which is the more force centered. They focus more on the spiritual aspect of being a Jedi Knight. And then you look at the black lightsaber, and they don't really have anything about it. They mention a lot of things about it being like invested in Mandalorian culture. It belonged to the first Mandalorian that became a Jedi, and things like it looks more like a sword, like Zach was saying, and also that it changes length based off of like how aggressively the person is acting in combat. But I think it's just going to be cool to see how Disney again expands their lore through something like a cartoon, which I think is really cool and is like a culture now. We have all of these TV shows, and like Marvel is doing the same thing where they're trying to tie in all of this extra lore. I think it's just really cool how people are trying to expand universes, not only from TV shows but now also from
jumping
movies,
from seeing an
shows.
Object that played such a significant role in 2 separate cartoon children's shows is now going to play probably an even bigger role than it has in this new season of The Mandalorian. I think that's so cool to me.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be awesome.
It's just really creative writing, and I love that people are starting to do that now, tying in like TV shows to bigger things like movies.
Plus, to see that thing in live action was dope.
Yeah,
I was
cool.
I was geeking out so bad.
They did a very good job of portraying it in real life for sure. But
that whole show honestly is just so well made for a show that's being streamed too. Like, I just wasn't expecting it. Like when the first episode came out and we all saw it, we were like, oh yeah, okay. Like, this is gonna be good.
They leave you wanting more every episode too. Like each one is 40 minutes, and you finish out the episode feeling like you only spent 15 minutes watching an episode.
Yeah, it's like, that's it.
Burn through time every single episode.
Yeah,
they do it really well, and I'm looking forward to the next season. But they need to have more than 8 next time.
42.
This is the way, Tegan.
Hear me, Disney. If you hear this, 42 episodes a season.
Good Lord.
That's 3 episodes a week.
We know how deep your pockets are. You can't hide from us.
We know this isn't trouble for you. Do it. Okay.
But yeah.
Anyways, with Star Wars in general, one thing I love about Star Wars is the effects and the stuff they put into that. I remember Andrew told me one time, he's like, if you want to be impressed, go watch, was it Corridor Digital?
Yeah.
Corridor Digital's video on, they just like analyze movie effects and stuff like that and how they did the old Star Wars movies. So like 4, 5, and 6, New Hope, the ones with Mark Hamill and
Carrie Fisher,
and
Harrison Ford.
Yeah, the old ones when they're young, and it's crazy, like, to think that they did that, and like most of the stuff was models, and you don't know, it's kind of mind-boggling that they're able to achieve it.
Yeah, it was cutting edge for the time as well, which is,
it kind of makes you feel bad though when you go back and look at it and you're like, this looks bad.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know, there's so much nostalgia in that kind of stuff, which is, it's awesome, and it's awesome how they did it, but you're like, eesh.
Yeah,
it just doesn't stand up to the time.
Whereas like I rewatching the prequels, so 1, 2, and 3, and seeing how oddly the special effects still hold up.
Yeah.
In some, like, the space battles are awesome. The whole opening sequence of Revenge of the Sith is just a space battle and just flying through space, bobbing and weaving through starships, and just, okay, this came out in 2005, mind you, and it still looks beautiful.
What something that I learned actually just today, which I think is crazy, is all of the clone troopers were CGI. I didn't know that until today. Like, looking back on it now, I mean, I was only like, what, 12 or 13? 10.
Well, wait, you said 2005? That's when Revenge of the Sith came out?
Yes.
Dude. And Attack of the Clones, when did that come out?
2002.
2?
Yeah,
you
so
were 7?
young, right? But I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference, you know. Like, I'm still old enough to be able to see when things are kind of askew in a film. You know, I can tell when something's cartoon or not. But like, that was wild to me, and I only learned that just today. But that's
honestly,
really cool.
Back then when it first came out, and like Revenge of the Sith and stuff, I couldn't tell a difference.
Yeah.
But then when you go back and look at it now, you're like, oh, yeah.
I guess I haven't watched the prequels in a while. So
there's some shots where it has the clone troopers without their helmets on, and it's it's like, yikes. Put that helmet back on, please.
That's funny. But kind of along those lines, like, I remember hearing a while back about who's the director of the Titanic. He also shot Avatar. He did Avatar.
James Cameron.
Yes.
James Cameron. So I remember hearing something about how he had the idea.
Sorry.
No, he had the idea for Avatar, like, way back even before the Titanic was made. But he didn't like the effects that movies had at the time. He didn't like the CGI or whatever
he
digital
knew
effects
that,
at the time.
Yeah, special effects could not produce what he wanted to make, and so I saw like an interview, and he says like, yeah, I wrote this screenplay back in '98, but
That's so crazy.
wasn't ready, so I put it on a shelf and waited.
That's so crazy to me. And he literally just let that marinate until like.
I mean, honestly, if he did try and make it, they would have just remade it again anyways, like they do with every other movie.
Kind of true, but I also think there's something to be said for like him waiting it out that long.
No,
Yeah,
mad
like,
respect.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
That's incredible.
Most other people won't.
Because that movie, I watched that because that's on Disney Plus as well, and so I watched that when Disney Plus first came out, and that was probably the first time I'd watched that movie in a decade.
Yeah.
I don't think I've watched that movie since it came out on Blu-ray.
Same.
And so that movie still holds up like incredibly well. That movie is gorgeous.
Wow, a decade ago. That's how long ago that movie was, man.
And we're still not getting a sequel for another year.
I heard they're making like a ton of them. Like,
I think
to 4 and 5.
They're supposed to be
yeah.
expanding the universe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they said
I don't know how I feel about that.
it will end with 5 movies, and so the sequel.
I feel like once they get to that point, like they're just like, oh, we can expand the universe a bit more and make a series here, kind of thing. Like it's just gonna keep growing until.
We'll have to see. I'm interested to see if Avatar becomes a thing again. Honestly,
Yeah.
because it was such a big deal when it came out, but it kind of it got its recognition and it kind of fell off the map for a while. There was a thing on Twitter where someone posted a GIF about Avatar, and then it was like retweeted and quoted, and it was like, "This is the first piece of Avatar content I've seen on Twitter ever." Like, what is happening?
That's funny.
Yeah.
But I'm super interested to see what happens, because they have a sequel. This Avatar 2 is slated for, I think, May of 2021, and then you get a sequel every 2 years starting then.
Dang.
And I think they said they're going to 5 movies. I think that's what I read.
Well, I have no complaints. I know there are a lot of people that are like, they hate the idea of just like going to sequel after sequel, but I kind of like the idea of people already having a box to work out of for their creativity. I think
as long
that
as they don't screw that box up.
it's true. It's true. I think there are definitely some bad examples of that as well, but like one of many Rocky movies, or one of many, I know there are plenty of shows like that where they each have their own duds, but I think it's kind of cool to see how people work within the universe that they have, kind of like I was talking about before. But
And I'm excited to see how it looks, because Avatar
That
1
too.
still holds up, and like I said, 10 years has passed, so who knows what they can create and sculpt and just throw at. I'm so curious.
it's cool too, because in when I was still taking design classes at BYU, we actually had an animator from Pixar Studios who had gone to BYU come back and talk to us, and he was saying, he's like, I worked on the Frozen movies. We were doing all the lighting for the animation. I'm like, lighting for the animation? What the heck, But like, they actually have like sets that they make in animation before they throw everything else in there. And he was saying, like, if there is something in a program that we don't like or that we don't have, like Pixar builds it.
Yeah.
They build like software in order to produce what they have in mind exactly. So it's like they're just shelling money at this stuff now, and it's expanding exponentially. And who knows, like you said, where it's going to be in another 10 years.
No, you just have to shell your money towards 3 episodes a week of 42 episodes of Mandalorian.
Get on it, Disney.
Hashtag ad.
Take all your funds, put it towards the Mandalorian, close down Disneyland, do whatever you have to, sell it off. 3 episodes a week.
The only Disney content to be released from now on is just Mandalorian.
Mandalorian world. Mandalorian land.
Pedro Pascal is worth $2 billion after.
All right, well that's all I have for this week. Does anyone else have anything that they
I do
wanna
not.
talk about for now?
Good. I could complain about the new Aladdin movie.
And with that, we're out.
Signing off. This is Zalt of the Earth. We'll see you next time.
Bye.